on our violence intervention and our diversion program work. This is a program that really has been in process being set up over the last 9 months, and we're proud to say that we have all the pieces in place and we're up and running. So it's, I think, an exciting piece of our general public safety strategy, and also just trying to make this a better place to live. And so we're going to talk a lot about that in a little bit, including introducing a lot of the folks who are charged with really executing this program. So let's begin with some updates from our Joint Information Center. And first, our Workforce Solutions Department, that's sort of the State Department of Labor, they're hosting a virtual town hall today at 5:30 p.m. and they're going to be focusing on rent and housing assistance. Very important topic during these times. They're going to talk about programs available for housing assistance, tenant services, and steps to take if you're facing possible eviction. Of course, you can also reach out to one of our 4 locations at the city, our public health and services offices, which are all run by Gilbert Ramirez. Where'd he go? Oh, hiding behind the camera. Our deputy director in family and community, but I think we've talked a lot about that, but if there are questions on that, we can touch on that as well today. Now, the state of where the state is working on COVID-19, the relief fund, at the outset of the pandemic, New Mexico contributed about $500,000 to food banks and food pantries. And so this is part of the All Together New Mexico Fund, which was launched by the governor in collaboration with the New Mexico Coalition of Community Foundations. And they're just sharing that they have distributed the last rounds of funds to 39 different food banks and have done food distribution in all 33 counties around the state. So some great work there. Also, the New Mexico Workforce Solutions Department has submitted an application to FEMA for funding to provide an additional $300 per week payments to New Mexicans receiving unemployment benefits. So they will announce more information on this when it becomes available, but they have applied for those funds. Now, changing gears a little bit, we know that this is the first full week of school or different versions of that. And so, of course, it's online right now. It's my understanding basically every school is different. It's kind of a planning week and a one-on-one week, I know, for the school my kids attend. And so we also know that there's going to be a school board meeting coming up. I think it's maybe Wednesday, and they're going to be discussing, are we sticking with the original hybrid plan, or are we doing something different? And as you may recall, the city has been working with APS to try and look at sort of another side of that equation, which is how do we help parents and kids during this obscure different school year, especially if they are working parents or a single working parent, where we are trying to do everything we can as a city to avoid this choice between staying at home and going to work if you have to work. And of course, this often has to do with folks, unfortunately, in low-income situations. Oftentimes, too, can be folks of color, but it also is essential workers. So you see this problem even for like nurses and doctors and things like this. So as we announced a couple of weeks ago, the city is working hard to provide alternatives for parents so they can take their kids somewhere and they can still be able to get the kind of education through APS, but they also don't have to be home if the parent doesn't have that choice to stay home. So we are working with APS on this. We've sent them a couple of letters on this. We're having meetings with them. I do want to share with you at a high level some of the recommendations that we have shared to APS that will make it easier for, again, these parents in this situation, right, who don't have the luxury to stay at home. And so the city can help, but we have to coordinate a couple of things. So we are recommending that if possible, and we're working with APS on this, that we know we can operate at least 10 playground recreation sites on APS property or community schools that can be available as after-school programs for working families. And I want to remind folks, this could include special needs kids, because I think everyone agrees that special needs kids do need to actually be there in person. But it still creates that problem, what happens when school's out? Because normally they would be in our after-school programs. So we're working with them to try and set that up. We know, I think we can at least do about 10 different programs around the city for that. We also want really to understand that if we do need to do online learning all the way through to December, the city is putting on the table a distanced, outdoor, pod-based learning environment at Isotopes Park, at Balloon Fiesta, even at the convention center, which obviously would be indoors, but there's plenty of space there. So we have formally notified them that we are happy to provide that and work with them should that be needed down the road. We also are discussing with them the needs of our younger kids. So there is a challenge where we're seeing, right, the need for parental supervision goes up the younger the child is, and the challenges with online learning also goes up the younger the child is. So the more support is really needed for really kind of third grade and below, and their parents. And so that's what we're really asking them to focus on. And so no matter what proposal they go with, a hybrid or otherwise, we do think that options in person should be done for younger kids first for those reasons. And similarly, we will prioritize those younger kids in our programs because, again, those kids can't be home alone. They have trouble even with the computer and so forth. So that's another issue that we're talking with them about. And then there's a couple of others, too, that I do want to mention just going into this week where a lot of important decisions are going to be made for our kids. And this one is around the scheduling of online learning. So right now, online learning can be termed synchronous, which means there's sort of a teacher and it happens real time. Or it can be asynchronous, where they like watch a video and then do exercises and so forth. And we are really advocating that in order, again, to help these working parents who have to go to work, we can take those kids for like half a day in the morning or the afternoon. And they can do synchronous learning in the morning or vice versa. We could also do this every other day. We can do it every other week. We can do it however our school system would like us to do it. But what is very difficult is if we're going to have synchronous learning all day, right? That means the parent of a young child that has to work may have to stay home with that child and not go to work. That's the problem we're trying to solve this week with APS. So we do need their help on this, and we have a couple of different options. I think they'll make some decisions, probably, again, not speaking for them, but just because there's a school board meeting on Wednesday, and then shortly thereafter, whether it's Friday or even over the weekend, we'll announce how we're able to sort of accommodate or not. If there's obviously very intensive symmetrical learning all day, it's going to be really hard for us to help out these parents. So that's one of the challenges that we're working on this week in a collaborative way with APS. And we're talking to them almost every day at this point to try and make this work for every parent, not just parents who can have that luxury to stay home. Okay, now let's touch a little bit on administrative item, but one that we always want to give proper notice of, which is an emergency declaration. So as with the state, we've signed our next emergency declaration. There's actually nothing new in here, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it unless people have questions, but it rolls forward the last emergency order for the same time period going forward. And so the usual things are in there. Non-essential city-sponsored events, still not happening. We're using electronic signatures. We are accelerating construction. We're now up to $100 million in accelerated construction projects. We are authorizing virtual meetings for boards and commissions. We're waiving fees for businesses like registration and permitting. We're continuing to allow all the sidewalk and parking lot dining and so forth that we've been working on. We also are continuing our mask enforcement operations, and so that's still very much in place. And we also we haven't had to use this yet, but we did give ourselves the power to question out-of-state visitors, folks with out-of-state license plates, on whether or not they're following the quarantine rules, and so that's in there as well. I think the only small thing we added was bike-in service windows. And so part of this idea of having outdoor restaurants be able to be open, there's sort of a little bit of a loophole on whether or not you could do it if you can only bike to your restaurant or your establishment and there isn't like appropriate parking and roadways. You can. That's now allowed under the emergency order, so you can have your bike-in only restaurant or food truck is totally acceptable now. All right, you can find out more information on our website, cabq.gov. So what we're going to do now is transition to our video and our deep dive topic for today, which is really switching gears over to the challenges we're having in our city around violence. These have been around for a long time, whether it's gun violence or other types of violent crime. We know that for almost a decade, unfortunately, these have continued to be steadily on the rise. And our city is now moving from being behind and not innovative with respect to this to now being really ahead of the curve. What we're announcing today puts us at the forefront of America when it comes to violence intervention programs and diversion programs, and it categorizes roughly with about 20 or so other cities that are cooperating with the John Jay School, and that's a school on criminal justice reform out in New York, that are really deep diving into this notion of violence intervention. There are a lot of partners involved in this. I want to mention this. Because of Corona and whatnot, we're just going to hear from city folks today, but the DA's office is a wonderful partner in this. They actually were kind of working on this on their end before us, but it is something a police department has to do, and so we're now owning this fully going forward in cooperation with our partners. That does include some other different, even CYFD and other partners like that around the state. So we'll let the experts talk about it, but first let's watch this video.
My name is Jerry Pachicha. I'm with the Albuquerque Police Department, and I'm the manager of the Violence Intervention Program. The last 12 years of my career, I have focused on creating safe, thriving communities across New Mexico.
My name is Langwood. I am a commander of the Albuquerque Police Department. Currently, I oversee the Criminal Enforcement Division. I started off with the Albuquerque Police Department back in 2007. The majority of my time as an officer, I was a detective in investigations where I worked undercover, where we are looking at individuals that, based on their behavior, they've shown the propensity to where they may be involved in tomorrow's shootings. So focusing on these individuals, we are now going out and we are talking with them, and we're being very honest with them, letting them know that they are a part of this community. We care about them. We do not want to see them hurt or killed, and we don't want to see them spending the rest of their life in prisons.
My name is Garcia, and I'm the Social Services Coordinator for the Violence Intervention Program. When I got interviewed for this position, I got very passionate and excited about it because as a former gang member for 20 plus years and a 4-time convicted felon, I know the obstacles that we face when we're trying to change our lives.
I'm Tanya Covington. I'm the director of the Rapid Accountability Diversion Program. I've been a mediator for over 30 years. I'm trained in basically every kind of mediation that there is, and I've done and taught mediation everywhere from Santa Fe to Russia. And I'm very excited that the city of Albuquerque has embraced restorative justice.
To date, we've conducted 22 successful interventions where we've, again, met with these individuals, explained our program and the city's position.
The Rapid Accountability and Diversion Initiative, which is now part of the Violence Intervention Program, is a unique collaboration between APD and the community. Initially, RAD will focus on underage drinking and early interventions on youth gun violence.
VIP model demands that we take a public health approach citywide to reducing gun violence.
We are all in this community together. They are also a part of this community. So as one community, one Albuquerque, we want to be able to provide resources.
Albuquerque is very invested in its community, and they're willing to help. So I'm here waiting for your call. If you need help changing your life, I've done it already for myself, and I would like to help you change yours.
Hi, my name is Jerry Pachicha. I'm with the Albuquerque Police.
So we will, one thing we'll do is we'll post that online and we'll send it out so you guys, I know the sound wasn't too good on that. But the good news is we have everyone here to tell you all of that and speak to it. So I'm going to introduce them shortly, but let me give a little bit of an overview on this. This is a very unique model that is basically, as was mentioned, a public health approach to violent crime. And it's also about early interventions. And so the notion is that there's actually a relatively small number of folks as a percentage of the population of the city that are involved in violent crime. And often what's leading them to crime are actually personal and social issues that if you provide help in those areas, it'll actually sort of break that cycle of retribution, which really drives violent crime among these groups of folks. And so there's a lot to this. It's very counterintuitive, and in some ways it's very, very proactive. And so this has seen, again, in these other 24 or so cities that have been working on this, they have seen actually meaningful drops in violent crime, meaningful meaning at least 10% or more. And again, there's statistics on this available through the John Jay Center, and they can provide you with that. So we know that this is cutting edge, but we also know it has had some success in other areas around the country. In fact, this is really the only model that has shown success other than adequately staffing APD. Other than adequate staffing, this has been one of the only models around the country, at least in the last 10 years, that has shown a path to decrease violent crime. And so, again, very needed here, and we're glad that we're going to be able to start this. Now, it's been about 9 months in the making. Part of it was hiring the team that you're going to hear from today, or moving individuals like our commander from his old role into these roles. So creating this, I want to emphasize, this is a collaborative division, it's not really a division, but it's a collaborative working group between our Family and Communities department. These are obviously civilians, they're trained, and also some folks in APD, and also some new folks that we're hiring. So again, it's a mix when it comes to what department these folks are from. This is a real investment in our city. Obviously, each one of these individuals is compensated, and so that is the funding that we are allocating towards diversion and rapid accountability, and violence intervention. Now, a couple of things I want to highlight about this program. It does involve some analysis of violent crimes to look at trends and data to really understand what's driving violent crime in Albuquerque and sort of the age of the folks and the groups of the folks that are typically involved in it. It also involves respectful in-person communication with high-risk individuals. And you're going to hear a little bit about how we do that. But it really is interacting with the individuals who are involved or around violent crime to, again, try and break that cycle of future crime or retribution-based crime, which often, of course, it's just whether it's revenge or disrespect that happens, that's what drives a lot of this crime, and that's what we're trying to really intervene in and disrupt so that it doesn't happen that next round. And so for us, we're going to hear from the individuals that you saw in the video. We're going to speak a little bit to this. But it also has to do with engaging our incarcerated population, even at the Bernalillo County at MDC, but also sometimes in the juvenile system. And it means establishing a social services-based approach with these folks, again, to try and break that cycle of violence. So we have social workers involved as well to try and actually get folks some of the help that they need. And so I'm going to introduce a few of these in a little bit, but this is really about intentional management of partnerships with prosecutors, with law enforcement, and with community organizations. And for me personally, I know before Corona happened, I personally went with APD and some other folks out to New Haven to see how this works there, also out to Oakland. And I've been in close conversation with the mayor of Stockton, who's had incredible results with this program. And by the way, there's going to be an HBO special on this program in Stockton, and so stay tuned for that, but it's similar to what we're trying to set up here. So with that, let me introduce some individuals involved in this, and in no particular order. I want to start with Angel, actually. And Angel Garcia is really our social services coordinator and is kind of our front interface for this program in the community. Angel?
Good morning, everyone. So, as you heard in the video, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I was a gang member from 12 to 33 years old. And one thing I am completely aware of is that the streets don't change. Only the zip codes do. The feelings of helplessness, that no one cares, whatever the feeling it is that's driving you to those actions, we're addressing it here. I work for Family Community Services, where we have a wide variety of services that I could help out the community with. So when I go talk to an individual, I let them know if you're food insecure, we have places where you could go get food boxes. If you need utility assistance, emergency diapers, emergency basic needs, just call me. And I am completely aware, too, that just because I decided to change my life, and I have an inspiring story now that I'm not automatically going to reach them. So what I really try to do is just plant the seed. When you're sick and you're tired of this life already, Family Community Services, the city of Albuquerque, and I will be there to help and assist you on the next path on your journey. Thank you.
Okay, and next we're going to go through again some of the key individuals involved in this program. And our VIP program manager is Jerry Bachicha, and we're very fortunate to get her. She'll tell you a little bit about her background, but she was really sort of made for this position. And so, Jerry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Keller. Good morning, everyone. I came from the juvenile justice system. I've worked with the state, the county, and now the city in New Mexico. New Mexico, I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but New Mexico is my home. And I want it to be safe, just like everybody else in the city and the county and the state wants to be safe. I have spent my entire adult career working on the safety and well-being of communities in the state. So I decided that I really wanted to take on the violence intervention program because of the structure that it offers us and the way of doing business with both the community and with systems, the law enforcement systems. The Violence Intervention Program is, or VIP, is a joint community law enforcement effort to end the cycles of gun violence in Albuquerque that destabilize our neighborhoods, create fear for our citizens, and take the lives of many of our young people. VIP operates under a set of guiding principles to strengthen communities' capacity to prevent violence, to deter violent gun crime, offer help to those who want it, like Angel just talked about, and use enforcement strategically. In Albuquerque's VIP's focus will be targeted to a small but very high-risk population who drive violent gun crime. The drivers of all gun violence in our city have been determined through data to be less than 0.01% of Albuquerque's population. That's a very small part of the population. So strategies by enforcement have to be very targeted. This data-driven program identifies the drivers of violence in our community and works on several levels to reduce the risk of those drivers being involved in any further gun crimes. Strategies to reduce violent gun crime target the reduction of cycles of violence through deterrence. This includes the use of custom notifications to persons belonging to a group that continues to drive this gun violence. The notifications themselves are delivered by a joint team of community credible messengers, case managers, and law enforcement. So you can see that we're building and building and building on partnerships with this program. And that's the way, that is the model, and that's where the magic or the significant reductions come in. Custom notifications offer both preventative messages regarding personal legal exposure, and they also offer personalized support through case managers like Angel, who have credible street experience and understand the unique challenges that their clients face. Though the VIP program is in its infancy, custom notifications have been initiated, and the community-based gun violence reduction system is in the planning and development stages. This is both a citywide initiative and a customized neighborhood initiative. Each neighborhood will be supported to develop customized strategies for gun violence reduction. Law enforcement will work with community leaders to share data which informs the community approach to the work. Initial neighborhood focus will be in the areas of the city with the highest gun violence crime rates. In addition, the Bernalillo County Community Health Council will be a key partner in developing citywide gun violence reduction strategies, really based and rooted in public health. They will take an evidence-based approach. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Where did you come from? The juvenile detention center? Yes. Right, yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Jerry. And again, she comes to us from the Juvenile Detention Center, where she was working with incarcerated children and families on somewhat similar issues. Now, we also want to hear from, again, we mentioned this is really a collaborative group between a lot of folks. We have created a special commander level position for this work inside APD. And so it's a real commitment to us to funding solutions that save lives and actually helping these individuals. And so for us, the commander tasked with that is Luke Langwood. Commander, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Keller. Good morning, everyone. My name is Luke Langwood. I am the commander with Albuquerque Police Department's Criminal Enforcement Division. And just a brief history, when I came on the department, I spent the majority of my career in investigations at the detective and sergeant level. I supervised the undercover narcotics unit, vice unit. So I spent a lot of time with enforcement, particularly on drug traffickers who were oftentimes armed with firearms, and also human traffickers that were also oftentimes armed with firearms. During my management period as a lieutenant, I was assigned to the Special Operations Division, where I was the tactical lieutenant. So I oversaw the SWAT team, the bomb squad, and the K-9 unit. So the majority of my career, I spent my focus on enforcement and making the apprehensions for individuals that were committing violent felony crimes. So when I was pulled into this program 9 months ago, and I met with the mayor and the chief administrative officer and the executive staff of APD, I really was excited about the idea of not just using our resources to focus on today's incidents and to solve today's shootings and crimes, but using our resources also to take a proactive effort to stop tomorrow's incidents and tomorrow's shooters. And I thought that was important, and I really see the value, and this can make a difference in reducing and stopping gun crime and violent crime in our city. So again, I'd like to give you the law enforcement perspective for the VIP program. At the end of the day, it's our fundamental responsibility to advocate for victims of crime and provide justice for victims of crime. Our shooting reviews that we are conducting weekly, we're bringing in every public safety partner in the city, and together we are using all of our resources to solve the shootings, but to also identify potential drivers of future gun crime or tomorrow's shooters. After a thorough risk assessment is completed, the VIP team is able to determine if enforcement is necessary for this individual or if we can do an intervention. And I'd like to expand on that. Unfortunately, there is a very small percent of individuals where, based on their propensity for violence, an intervention may not be effective. So we have to use enforcement. We had one individual where the last 3 incidents within a 3 or 4 month period, he was involved in 3 different altercations, and every single time he was armed with firearms. And we all knew on the VIP team that it was only a matter of time before he would commit a shooting. So again, all of the public safety partners, we came up with a plan. An operation was conducted, and in 2 months we were able to purchase a large quantity of narcotics, cocaine and marijuana extract off of him, and 4 stolen handguns. Currently he's federally detained, and he will be facing federal charges. So that's an example of the enforcement action that we together collaboratively are taking. When it comes to the intervention portion, there is the majority of these individuals that we identify that are present during the scene of a shooting or a homicide that involves a firearm. We're just looking at their relationships and their associations, whether if it's on the victim side or the offender side, where we can, again, through our assessment, we can see that there is a likelihood that there could be retribution, or that due to the lifestyle that they're involved in, they may be involved in a shooting tomorrow or next week. So we're taking that custom notification, that intervention approach. Custom notifications are interventions specific to individuals that are involved in shootings or gun crimes. They're identified drivers of gun violence and or group or gang members. For the law enforcement and for the overall custom notification approach, there are 3 components to it. There's that community-based moral voice component, where the message is clear. They are part of this community. We don't want to see them seriously hurt or injured, or killed, we care and we want to see them improve their quality of their life and contribute to our community. And then the law enforcement component, where we are up front and tell them the full extent of law enforcement capabilities and partnerships that we'll take on, the enforcement that we'll do if they continue involving themselves with gun violence. And then the last component is that social service and outreach component, where we are working with our resources and providers to assist with living and employment and just improving their quality of life. To date, we have prepared 27 custom notifications, and our VIP team has successfully delivered 24 of those notifications. Just a couple quick highlights. Our social service and outreach coordinator, Angel, has done a great job with following up with these individuals, and to date we have done 67 service contacts with follow-up phone calls or in-person visits. We've made 10 referrals for counseling, peer-to-peer support, pathway programs, and transportation assistance and housing assistance. So I feel that this is going to be huge for our city, and I'm excited to see the results that we can get. Thank you.
Okay, now we want to talk about the diversion side of this, especially with respect to underage drinking and youth gun violence. And before I bring up Tanya Covington, as she mentioned on the video, has really dedicated her life to these types of programs all across the country. We're very fortunate to have her. And I think also by putting her into the city structure, we are going to be able to utilize her talents for many, many more individuals. And so I think this is really going to accelerate that career of work that she's done. And also, this is the other side of, you might remember that there was this, we had a lot of teen violence around parties and so forth last summer. And you might recall our commitment to say that, you know, we are doing that enforcement again to break up these parties. But we also made it clear with City Council, and City Council agreed that we can't just have, you know, that other version that we had in the 90s. It's got to be just, okay, disperse the party. But we've got to have a diversion program for the individuals involved with weapons and with drugs that are at those parties. That is what makes this very, very different than the previous programs. And we mentioned this and talked about it at the time. And now, because of Tanya, we can actually deliver on it. And so, Tanya, come on up.
Thank you very much. As the Mayor said, I have been working on this for a very long time. And I have to say that one of the things, and I kind of brag about this across the country, that we're lucky enough to have a mayor who has said that he wants to see Albuquerque become a restorative justice city. And that's pretty amazing, because the cities that have embraced restorative justice have just found some amazing results. First of all, their crime always goes down, both adult crime as well as youth crime. They tend to have a much better relationship between community and the police, and community gets more involved in actually helping to become a part of be part of the solution, so that the police don't have to do everything, don't have to be everywhere. The community works well with them. And so one of the things that we're doing right now is we're putting together these programs. We have, as we said, the Rapid Accountability Diversion Program, RAD, which I'm heading up. And right now we're actually involved in training community members who have volunteered and said that they want to help us get this going throughout the city, which means they're actually going to be helping us to work with the young people who get picked up, the young people who have been involved in underage drinking, and eventually the young people who have been carrying guns or involved in gun violence. So I think it's pretty amazing to put this kind of program together and have community say, yes, this is exactly what we've been wanting, and volunteer to help out and do this. So I think it's pretty amazing, and there aren't a lot of other places in the country that are doing this. And those places, though, as I said, have always had very good results. So we're hopefully to help the young people be able to understand the consequences of their actions and give them some new skills and some new training. Teach them de-escalation methods, teach them about anger management and communication, and give them different ways of being able to resolve their problems without having to be violent. I think that's one of the most important things, and it's the things that we've seen that have made the most difference. So I'm extremely excited that we're going to have the chance to do this in Albuquerque, and hoping that a lot more people are going to get involved. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks for that shout out. Well, really appreciate that, and that commitment to restorative justice is what both of these programs in many ways is all about. And so I think that's a good way to wrap up. Thank you so much, Tanya and others. We do have some other folks who work in this program here, if there's questions and so forth, including one of our social workers and some of our other public health folks involved. But what I'd like to do now is really go ahead and transition to our question and answer section, and just thank everyone who's involved in this program for their commitment to making our city better, and again for all those partners and community members that are also involved in this. We hope this is really going to make a difference for generations to come. So,
in the room first?
yeah.
Yeah, I got a few on the VIP, this new program, and then a few on the state of violent crime and where APD is at. First, sure. Yeah. So first on the VIP program, we had heard that police were focusing on this gun data and this data, the crime driver system. Is this related? Is this the same thing? They didn't provide any data. We asked for it, and they said that, you know, we wanted to make sure that we weren't compromising investigations. Jerry mentioned some stats on the crime drivers. Is this the same thing, or is this something different than the gun data-driven focus that your administration wants to take?
Sure. These are really different programs. They're obviously related in that they're both about gun violence. But one is about tracking the usage of a firearm in different violent crimes and using that as a tool to help prosecutors. And so that's the NIBINS program and the different things that we've been talking about, and our work with AFT on things like that. This is more about understanding the individuals as people and saying, okay, in any given city, there's only a small percentage of individuals typically involved in, like, half the crime. The violent crime is usually driven by a couple of hundred folks. And so this is about understanding who they are and why they're engaged in violent crime. And so this actually, in some ways, in that respect, this is the opposite of data. This is action. This is actually doing something with people. This is not just running reports. And I think that's a marked difference from what the city's done in the past. This isn't about PowerPoint slides or interesting analysis. This is actually about trying to get these people not to shoot each other. That's what this is about.
And then you said some of these cities have seen great success in this. I understand this is trying to treat the disease and not the symptoms for long-lasting, meaningful impacts. When can we expect to see these meaningful impacts? What have other cities seen in regards to success?
So the John Jay School can really provide you with the statistics, but we've seen a range between 10% reduction in violent crime all the way up to some situations in the high 30s. Stockton, again, California is a good example of that. So for us, you know, we will take any meaningful reduction in violent crime. That's what we're hoping for. And we do know that it takes a while. So this is going to take anywhere from 9 to 18 months to see an impact. And that's just how long these programs take. And if there's more impact sooner, we'll be all the more better off.
So following the community's response on this is an officer-involved shooting question. So following the latest response on the officer-involved shootings, how's APD stepping up transparency for the public?
Sure. So the question is a little bit about our officer-involved shootings and transparency. A couple of things. We always release all of the lapel video and all the 911 calls. And we have a protocol that we set up with the DOJ to do that, and we're following that protocol. So I think the good news is that in Albuquerque, which is different than a lot of other cities, all of this information always comes out. And it usually comes out, a week or so after, and so it depends on the number of shots fired and the number of cameras and all of this. And there are legal rules to this that have been worked out with the Department of Justice. And so those will be coming out. I would expect them in the next week or two. And we'll share those as we always do.
A couple online from Chris McKee with KRQE. I'd like to know about the offer to use large city facilities for school programs, school time programs, or school use. How would you address any red tape concerns that might arise about these facilities not being built to the purpose of being schools?
Well, the question is about some of these larger facilities and how we get around different concerns and so forth. The short answer is through an emergency order, we cut the red tape. So, and again, these are things other cities are using around the country. They're using different things like stadiums or convention centers to create space, right, when their space is limited. And so, especially outdoor space, that is, of course, like the healthiest place you can be. And so for us, if it's a series of, tent structures out at Balloon Fiesta and so forth, we can work around that and accommodate the public health order. Now, we don't know if there's a need to do this or a desire to do this from APS. We're simply offering that as something we know we can deliver on at the city.
We've seen protesters in recent weeks say that they're protesting Operation Legend, secret police, and federal officers here in Albuquerque. You said you want something in writing, and that the help, we want to be clear on what it is. Are you familiar with any examples of federal officers anywhere stepping over those lines? And if not, are you more amenable to help from the federal government today?
So, as I've mentioned before, we work with the federal government every day in all sorts of ways, and we always do that under a memorandum of understanding that maps out sort of the rules of engagement, and we're still happy to do that. And so we continue to work on the legal front with any operation, and that's how we do it. We do it on paper and we do it legally. So we've obviously gotten lots of assurances verbally, and I mean, that is what it is. You'd have to ask really the U.S. Attorney's Office or the DOJ in terms of what else they're doing that they may or may not have talked about. We have not heard of anything besides what they have guaranteed in writing, which is that it'll be nothing like what people were concerned about. But again, those are their words. And so we're hoping they keep their word.
So you haven't heard of any examples of federal officers doing things that would be problematic for you and your view?
So I personally have not, but it's not. The federal government can do what they want to do and not tell the mayor about it. So I'm just saying I have not heard anything, but that's all I can speak to. I can't speak for those organizations.
Follow-up from Chris on Zoom with KRQE. So is the approach to APS and working together on the schools, is it an extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures situation?
Different options for APS, it really is going to depend obviously on the virus. And so if there are major issues going forward and we're thinking about, what do we do through December, we want to make sure we have as many options on the table as possible. And for us, actually, it's not that difficult to put into play things like the Balloon Fiesta and the Convention Center. It might be very difficult on the education side, but for the city to offer, we will step up where we're needed and where we can. And this is a way we can step up to provide more space for our kids.
Do you know what the current homicide clearance rate is? We know it's been around 50%, and that's down from where it was years past. Can you speak to where it's at and why it's at there, and is there anything we can do to bring swifter justice to the families that have been impacted by this?
So the question is about the homicide clearance rate, and I can certainly speak a little bit to that. That's really a question for APD. And so for us, number one, we know that the clearance rate is a little bit lower than it has been. It's not out of line with national standards. But I will say this, the reason why we're challenged is because there's so many homicides. So the more homicides there are, the lower the clearance rate is going to be. And that's why programs like this are so important, because the whole point of them is to reduce homicides, which will then increase clearance rate.
And then can I get your response to the APD union survey? There was a survey done, I think, 4 weeks ago. The union came out and said 83% of 433 officers don't feel supported by you. The police spokesperson said that they were questioning the motives and the methodology of that survey, but what is your reaction to the APD union survey that says 80% of officers are interested in looking for jobs elsewhere, and they don't feel supported by yourself.
I think that survey has been pretty much the same for the last 10 years. It has said that about anyone in any position. And so, you know, I always want to see better numbers, but I think we got to push forward. So the concept that we both believe in together is how can we make this a safer city and how can we make it a better department? And actually the union and myself, we agree on those goals. And so the long-standing, decade-long challenges we've had, it's going to be a long way to dig out. And I will say this, they got the largest raise that they have had in a decade under my administration at my direction. And we have more officers than we have for at least the last 5 or 6 years than we've ever had. So I think our administration, at least on a relative basis, is doing much, much better.
Lastly, there was an interesting vote in City Council last night about military surplus gear. I believe it was a 4-4 vote. Some councilors are asking if you'll use executive powers to ban military surplus gear getting to APD. What's your reaction to the vote last night? Do you plan to use executive action?
So, you know, I think this is important where we want to separate, you know, people trying to speak to national issues and take a stand as they should as elected officials versus reality. And it's behind your question. We already don't allow that. So we didn't even need this resolution. We don't have to do anything new because we haven't been doing it. So would have been great to have a resolution, but we're not worried about it because we already haven't been doing it.
But the councilors said they were concerned about the next administration. They said they were grateful for the police chief and yourself for their position right now. But in the future, would you consider using executive action to try to prevent this from future administration?
So I would love the power to prevent future administrations from doing a lot of stuff. And you just don't have that power. That is exclusively the power of council. So if they want to do something to bind future administrations, we would support it, just like we did last night. But or they could somehow give me those powers. That would be even better.
Unless there's anything else on VIP to add, can we wrap it up and get back and follow up later?
Real quick on crime stats, there was an old system, and you said that we were trying to get more money and resources to update the crime stats. Some cities where Operation Legend's operating, like Kansas City, do daily crime stats where they show homicide rates and clearance rates. Where are we with organizing the crime stats and being transparent with the direction violent crime is headed?
So there was a presentation on this last night for 30 minutes. And so I would really basically check on that, and you can follow up with APD. We've done several press releases on where we're at. The good news is we've come a long way. We identified over 3,000 error records going back 10 years. So look, we have not had totally accurate crime stats for over 10 years. It was basically whenever we bought the new system, nothing was totally accurate since then. And now we've invested in what we believe in the FBI and our outside expert, Dr. Winograd, is confirming. And so we've now caught up to 2019. And so we're getting there. We are in a much better place than we have been for the last 12 years, and that's a good thing. But everything still takes way too long.
Okay, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.